There's a level of expectation that they have that is just not realistic. And they are adding to a set of challenges that this business is already facing.
Now that we've had time to kind of go over the background of the strike, good old Geeks and Gamers, Bob Iger gets backlash saying writers are on strike, are not realistic, actors go on strike with writers. Ooh, let me, before we dive into this, let me dive into one more thing I want to bring out. Okay, come on, switch over there. All right, Disney CEO Bob Iger says writers and directors and actors are not being realistic with strikes. It's very disturbing to me. During an appearance on CNBC's Squawk Box on Thursday morning, Disney CEO Bob Iger said that writers and actors unions are going on strike in Hollywood are not being realistic with their expectations. It's very disturbing to me. We've talked about disruptive forces on this business and all the challenges we're facing. The recovery from COVID, which is ongoing, it's not completely back. This is the worst time in the world to add to that disruption. I understand any labor organization's desire to work on behalf of its members to get the most compensation and be compensated fairly based on their value that they deliver. We managed as an industry to negotiate very good deal with Directors Guild that reflects the value that the directors contribute to the great business. I want to do the same thing with the writers, and we'd like to do the same thing with the actors. There's a level of expectation that they have that is just not realistic. That they're adding to a set of challenges that this business is already facing is quite frankly very disruptive. Very disruptive. You know, I'm certain, like, here's the deal, like, I actually even talked about on Discord, so, like, a couple of you are on the Discord server you've seen. I'm certain the usual suspects are going to talk about the actors as if they're the Hollywood elite. They're going to bring up, you know, people like Tom Hanks and stuff, like, oh, these are the Actors Guild, and yeah, these are the public members of the actor. These are absolutely the Actors Guild, and it's also the public face of Hollywood. But most people in the Actors Guild, most people in SAG are making way, way less. I mean, Matt Damon was bringing up how there's people who need to get $26,000 a year to get to their medical insurance.
What we would be striking for if we strike is unbelievably important. We ought to protect the people who are kind of on the margins, and $26,000 a year is what you have to make to get your health insurance, and there are a lot of people who residual payments are what carry them across that threshold, and if those residual payments dry up, so does their health care, and that's absolutely unacceptable. We can't have that, so we got to figure out something that is fair. Anyway, we'll see where it goes. Everyone hopes that it won't happen. Nobody wants a work stoppage. It's painful for every other guild, really painful for IATSE and all of our brothers and sisters there. Nobody wants that, but we gotta be working under contracts that are fair.
To give you an idea of how much people on the bottom of the Actors Guild are making. So yeah, they're having trouble getting by. And Bob Iger here is talking from, frankly, a tone-deaf position. You know, he's trying to be diplomatic here, but he's also like, he's a rich motherfucker. Let's get that straight. He could probably, out of his own pocket, pay these writers, like, think about, like, a lot of these CEOs make, like, what, like $200 million a year or something like that? Something ridiculous. I think it was something, 200 million was something like that for Zaslav. That means you could take what he makes and pay 100 writers $1 million a year. Like, dude, we can definitely distribute this thing a bit more fairly. Well, of course, he's talking about how, listen, man, Hollywood's struggling. It's tough right now for what we're doing. You know, streaming's not supporting us, man. It's rough. Very similar to the rhetoric of a lot of the guys we cover. Obviously, he's not going to add the bigoted tones to it, but I think it's interesting. You know, he's going to talk about how business is struggling because, honestly, business struggling is good for his bottom line. Because you can bring down those profits, you can reduce those you can report those on your taxes, and that way that'll give you the best tax return. And you know, you can when you're going into negotiations with unions, you don't want to go into negotiation with union and be like, oh yeah, we're doing great. How much you want? No, you want to go into negotiation with union and be like, oh, we're struggling, man. It's rough. What are you doing asking for stuff? These guys are pretty much full of crap. And I saw on here, oh yeah, Fran Drescher has already replied. Fran Drescher slams Bob Iger's repugnant and Deftones strike comments. If I were Disney, I would lock him behind doors. On a July 13th interview with CNBC's David Farber from the Sun Valley Conference, Iger said WGAA and SAG-AFTRA strikers were not being realistic with their demands. Her response was, I found them terribly repugnant and out of touch, positively tone deaf. I don't think it served him well. Drescher said on Friday, when asked about Iger's comments, speaking to Variety's chief correspondent Elizabeth Wagmeister. Drescher continued, if I were that company, I would lock him behind doors and never let him talk to anybody about this, because it's so obvious that he has no clue as to what is really happening on the ground, with hardworking people that don't make anywhere near the salary he is making. High seven figures, 8 figures, this is crazy money that they make, and they don't care if they are land barons, and they don't care if they're land barons of medieval time. Yeah, and that's, obviously they need to distribute stuff a bit more fairly. And that's something, like, a lot of the guys we talk about, it's something I've thought about today. A lot of the guys we talk about how these companies are struggling. And it's a lot like the corporate line these guys are talking right now. Like, Bob Iger and David Zaslav are talking about, oh, we're struggling right now. We're having trouble getting by. And it's just like, fucking Geeks and Gamers always scream about how these guys are getting destroyed and wrecked. And I find that interesting. It's like, essentially, the CEOs will do the corporate line. And then these chud outlets here will do the corporate line. And then add some bigotry to it, too. Don't forget that. But yeah, it's crazy. Let's see what their great take is going to be.
Hollywood officially, the actors are now on strike with the writers. The writers have been on strike going on 3 months. The actors have joined them, which means they are now a united front against the studios. And Bob Iger, the guy who's known for being able to smooth talk everything and make everybody feel good about everything, he had a big misstep yesterday. Actually said a lot yesterday about how kind of they've put out too many Marvel movies and all these things. But one thing really caught fire. This interview he gave right before the writers officially went on strike. Disney CEO Bob Iger says writers and actors are not being realistic with strikes. It's very disturbing to me. And he goes on to talk about how some of the writers...
Oh, yeah, Wallace Gromit fan. Didn't you know Jeremy Griggs here from Geeks and Gamers has nothing to do with the Fandom Menace. Nothing. Now listen, he talks to all the Fandom Menace guys, he's friends with them, he streams with them regularly, and he has the exact same rhetoric of them. But he has no affiliation with them whatsoever.
Demands aren't very realistic and things like this. Well, of course, he immediately got the finger pointed at him, said, you came back to work 2 years for $54 million, yet you're saying that these people who can't feed their cats are having unrealistic demands. Then somebody decided to show some receipts in a very embarrassing fashion, both for Disney and for himself, to be honest. She-Hulk TV writer blasts Disney CEO by revealing their surprisingly low payment. So the guy who wrote the episode of Daredevil's cameo in She-Hulk, the episode where Daredevil got treated like absolute shit, well, he revealed how much money he got paid.
Daredevil was badass in that episode, but okay.
For that. Cody Ziegler, the residual check from my episode of She-Hulk was $396. Oof. Now, on one hand, I would argue that that's probably $396 too much.
That's true.
Because this...
these guys were going all right, just criticizing Iger, and now it's like, now we gotta criticize the writer. So, like, how much... Like, you don't like their work. Plenty of people did like that work. So, like, because you don't like it, they don't deserve to get paid? Like, what's your argument, man?
This is a terrible TV show that got rejected by everybody on a streaming...
except it wasn't rejected by anybody. It was just rejected by a whole bunch of people like you on the internet.
Service that during the time where She-Hulk was airing, the 2 quarters that it overlapped lost $1.5 billion in one of those quarters, and then lost 2.4 million subscribers and $1 billion in the next quarter. So if you're failing, If the streaming service isn't making money, what should your residuals really be?
Oh my God! So I almost thought they were going to be all right with criticizing Iger, and it seems like they're going to criticize Iger, but now they're going to go ahead and essentially take his side and be like, oh, but they're failing.
Either way, it's just a lightning rod of criticism towards Bob Iger and Disney for things like this. But $3.96 is one of the big things they're arguing about is residuals when it comes to streaming, while streaming's not making money, but the writers still want.
Well, that's the thing. We don't actually know the exact streaming numbers. And if it wasn't making money, why are they still doing it? Why are they pushing so much out on streaming if they're not making money? That's a weird take. Like, what? Do you think their goal is to lose money as a business? They just like losing money. They're like, oh, let's put stuff on streaming. We don't like making money, so let's do streaming. Do you think that's their goal, man? The obvious issue is that we need transparency in streaming.
To get paid like they are for the TV series they get residuals from. It's just a nightmare right now. And Bob Iger stepped in it with his comments, at least from a PR perspective.
I just don't see any scenario where Bob Iger gets this thing turned around. I really don't. Bob Iger is doing a really bad job from top to bottom right now. Historically, he's not done a bad job in terms of running the company as a business, even though he's made a lot of creative decisions that have not made a lot of people happy from a business standpoint. Historically, he's done good. But with everything going on with Disney as a whole, and then you have all of this stuff with the writer's strike, and now these comments, like, who would want to go work for a company like this? Now, there's still going to be mindless drones out there that will, but I mean, at this point in time, like, you don't really get to have a pass at this point in time anymore, even if you work for Disney. Like, you know what you're getting into. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I mean, people might have trouble working for Disney, but it's not going to be for the issues they're talking about. They're going to be like, oh, yeah, who wants to work for a woke company like Disney? No, Disney's just kind of evil, but, like, has nothing to do with, like, being woke. I mean, hell, the issue, like, I would argue their fight with DeSantis is, like, actually in their plus column, in my opinion, which, yeah, Disney is an evil corporation, but somehow DeSantis is going eviler. It's weird.
It's trash now. So many people growing up had this fantasy of like working for Disney. You know, oh, I just want to work for Disney because it was the name, the Walt Disney Company, and it had an image and it had a history. That is no longer this company. The romantic way that people viewed Disney all of those years ago it's an understandable thing from all of that time ago.
Well, yeah, because there's a difference between, like, when you're a kid, your view of Disney is going to be different than when you're an adult and you realize Disney's just a company, just a huge, massive company, borderline monopoly company.
Anyone that gets involved with Disney at this point in time, you almost get what you deserve. How can you not understand this company fucking hates you? They are not the company that you thought they were. And that's just the reality of the situation right now. And
company hates you. Listen, man, they probably hate their workers. I don't even know if it's as much they hate their workers as much as they don't give a shit about their workers. But as far as customers, like, I need evidence that they hate their customers, dude.
The more and more people think that they are something they're not, it's almost your fault now. They are not the company that you believed that they were, and you just have to fully understand that. They hate you, they hate the people, they hate the fans, they hate the people that work for them.
They hate the fans. What? I love how they just say shit. They hate the fans. What the fuck are you even talking about? Like, are you talking about you? Because you're not a fan. You guys, like, I don't know the guy in the bottom, but Ryan Kinel, Jeremy Griggs, you guys are not fans. You guys just shit on everything that comes out before you've even seen it. Like, if you gave it a fair shot and then you hated it, that's one thing. But you shit on it before it's even come out. You shit on The Little Mermaid just because Ariel's fucking black. Like, dude, you're not fans. Grow up.
They hate the continuity of the properties that they have control over. They just despise you, period. End of discussion. That's just it. So I don't see how that changes in the near future. It's all just a big game, and Bob Iger is pocketing millions and millions and millions of dollars while they're continuing to lose millions and millions of dollars.
Wow. Jeremy, do you realize the contradiction of what you just said? Like, Disney's losing money while Bob Iger pockets money. Like, either Disney's like a shell of a company and Bob Iger's hollowing it out directly into his pocketbook, Or, and you know what? Maybe it is. That's a hell of a scheme if he's doing that. That's a hell of a scheme. That's ballsy if he's doing that. But I suspect the board's making money too. So I suspect what's actually going on is that the company's making money, so therefore they're profiting off that money.
Something doesn't add up in this equation at all.
He showed where his investment was. He put his investment in virtue signalers and, people who...
Virtue signalers. I love it. These guys are so bad at this. This is ridiculous.
Who had zero track record, didn't have anything. They were failing upwards. I'm
going to need a source on this zero track record stuff.
Because they wanted to control them. He wanted to put no-name directors in these high positions to direct these big TV shows, these high-budget movies, because the studio wanted to control them. But now it's self-sustaining.
Oh, that is true. Studios, usually directors like to have a fair amount of control over their projects, and if it's something controlled fairly heavily by the studio, they're not going to get a big director unless they, have some sort of deal. But that's not new. That's been since the beginning of I can't think of a time I've been alive and movies haven't been like that. That's pretty standard practice.
At this point, they've hired way too many of these virtue signalers and left-wing nuts.
Source on these virtue signalers and what left-wing nuts. And yeah, they talk about what exact message is Disney pushing that's wildly left-wing? Obviously, Disney is concerned about making money because if they weren't concerned about making money and they were just left-wing nutters like these guys are trying to claim, then they would just give the strikers everything they wanted, made sure they get all the pay they need. It wouldn't be an issue. They wouldn't even be a strike right now if they weren't looking for money.
Nut jobs that... if he were to want to do anything about it, he is going to get heavily ridiculed because of the stance that he took. So he's really shot himself in the foot here.
I'm not siding with Disney or anything. Also, that's not all he got paid, right? He got paid up front as well for work he did.
I just want to point that if they don't side with the unions, they are siding with Disney.
But residuals are a big way in which so many of these writers end up making their money throughout the year, or even make enough to qualify to get their benefits and things like that from the union. So to do something that probably a lot of money was put into, blah, 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 all this stuff, yeah, you would expect to get more than $396. But what if that thing didn't generate any fucking money? And that's the problem with streaming. This is the fight that's going on right now with writers. It's over streaming because so much of the work they're doing is on streaming and they're not seeing the same numbers back in return as they...
Well, yeah, it's because a lot of the contracts haven't been updated for streaming and it's fucking them over.
...did in traditional TV because streaming is losing money.
I'm going to need a source on streaming losing money because that's the issue with streaming. There's no fucking transparency, so we have no idea. We do know streaming became a dominant force during the pandemic. So, and the fact that they keep on throwing money at it seems unlikely to make people think, oh yeah, they're losing money doing this. Because, what, you think they dislike losing money?
So, should they be getting that same money if the product is not making money? No. But you understand why they're upset about that. You understand why they're looking at doing even more work than they had been doing before and getting paid far, far less because of the shift that Hollywood has had to focus on streaming. Overall, you know what the real problem is? This shit's bad. It's bad writing. It's bad quality, bad shows, bad movies. That's Hollywood's biggest problem. All of this.
So if you think the issue with Hollywood right now is that everything's bad, then you should support the strikes. You should support the strikes because, lots of, especially if you're going to break it down to the writing. Maybe if you think the acting is bad as well. Part of the problem with the writing is absolutely the fact that people have to take on too many scripts just to get by. When you have to take on so many extra scripts, obviously you can't put as much effort into each individual script as you would like. So even if it's solid, you could put a little bit more work into it. So if you're getting paid more, you want to have to take on as many scripts, then you could actually put a bit more work into each one. So if you want better quality scripts, you support the strike.
Stuff is ancillary problems to that. But at the end of the day, if something's good...
Well, that Wallace and Gromit fan, I'll tell you, these people support... they're going to act like they're anti-corporate, but it's all facade. They're 100% pro-corporate. Essentially, even in this video, they're criticizing Bob Iger, but at the end of the day, they're still essentially taking his stance 100%, being like, oh, well, they're losing money. They're pushing the same line Bob Iger is pushing, that they're losing money, and that, essentially the writers and the actors are being unrealistic because they're losing money. Streaming's losing money, as they've said multiple times here. They are pushing the corporate line. They just are hiding it under a veneer of being anti-corporate.
You're not going to have as big of an issue. There's a reason Disney's losing billions of dollars. It's not because everything they're putting out is great. It's because most of what they're putting out.
Devi, it's funny you said that. You said next thing is the Chuds will go after Fran Drescher. I'm actually kind of waiting for that. I don't know if they have yet, but it wouldn't surprise me if they could start going after some sexist attacks on her, because she's been out there quite a bit.
And out as dog shit.
No, we don't need to watch it again. So let's see what else we got. So that's Geeks and Gamers on the strike. It's only been a couple days, so I don't know who will have stuff up about it. Writers' strike.
Can I just point out as well that the Actors Guild has voted to strike, so they are. People in chat are mentioning it. They are officially going to go out on a strike. I think it's effective from tomorrow, is it? It's going to take place pretty soon anyway. And that, as far as I understand it, that's going to shut down everything in Hollywood.
Yep. Everything.
Because they were managing to keep movies and stuff limping along with.
Does the Critical Drinker have a fake background? There's nothing fancy that background, but it looks fake how it's interacting with him. It might just be an optical illusion, too. Okay, so let's see. It's Critical Drinker, of course. Mauler, of course. I think Mauler's on, like, all these streams, I swear to God. Like, he's not on the Geeks and Gamers stuff, but he's, like, on all of Nerderotics. He's on all of Drinkers. It's ridiculous. Smokey, the Critical Doggo, which I suspect might be Critical Drinker's dog, and will, without doubt, be the most based and awesome one here. We will see. Little Platoon, who pops up in these streams and I've never actually looked at. Chris Gore, who we've looked at on the Fandom Initiative. I've never looked at him by myself, but he's the one that was pushing Disney for segregation in their content that contained gay characters. And then the Woke Critic, who I have never heard of. I'm sure they're great.
The writers on strike, but with this, you got nothing. That's it.
Everyone's saying the film Actors Guild.
Yeah. Matt Damon.
Even films that are already done and scheduled to come out will be impacted, because as I understand it, I mean, part of the strike is that actors will not go on press junkets. They won't do press tours. They won't give interviews. They won't do publicity materials. They won't do anything. So any film that's already done but is scheduled to come out will suffer marketing-wise.
Yes, that's true. In fact,
like Oppenheimer.
They moved up Oppenheimer so that they could do the red carpet. So it's no red carpets, no press interviews, no junkets, nothing. And this is affecting the Emmys is going to be pushed back because of this, because actors.
I just looked at the Oppenheimer. I don't know anything about moving up the release date. Or what? Is he saying they moved up the press junket to get there for a little bit? I don't know.
Can't, promote to win awards. Award season as a whole, there's an awards industrial complex. I know only because I'm part of an organization that votes in awards, the CCA, the Critics' Choice Awards. So I'm well aware of this stuff. But yeah.
Well, that's a good question, Whitney. It depends. If Gina's a member of SAG, then she's on strike. Union will not take kindly if she goes scab.
And here's how it's going to affect down the line. I was talking with friends. We were looking at social media last night, just as it went past midnight. It's going to affect everyone else below the line, electricians, everyone, any small job related to production will be affected. It will also affect the restaurant business.
I mean, he's going off. Let's see he's talking. Like he brought up the awards industrial complex. And then he's going off on something else now, so I don't know what he meant by that.
Because people in this industry, in this town, well, they go out to eat a lot. It's going to affect the economy in a dramatic way, at least in, Los Angeles area. quite a bit.
I think though this is forcing the issue though, isn't it? This is the whole point of it. I mean, they've proven that they can keep running for months without writers, like 'cause, well, they're fucking useless anyway. But
keep running, dude. That's such a dumb take. Keep running without months without writers. That's because writer is an early stage in pre-production. Like from script stage to seeing a movie is usually at least a year. So 2 months of no writing, you're not going to see an immediate impact. That's like the dumbest take ever. Like Critical Drinker, you're working on that Ryan Drake short film, whatever the fuck you're working on. Surely you understand the script process and the finished product. There's time between that, right? Like you understand that, right?
well, like if you don't have actors, it's like okay, the whole industry's shut down. That can't continue indefinitely. That has to be resolved pretty quickly. Yeah. So I can't see them being on strike for more than a couple of weeks before some kind of deal gets reached.
What's the big problem? Why are they striking?
Not paid enough. That's usually
it's not paid enough, not enough residuals, and I know one of the more recent controversies, certainly regarding the actors, was about AI and digital rights and image rights. So are you going to be forced, say, to sign a waiver saying that we'll be allowed to use your likeness in future without necessarily paying you for that? So I mean that bit I think is the most interesting part of the strike. I'm happy for all parties to lose in this one. I want the studios to lose. I think most of these writers are hacks and don't deserve employment, so I'm happy for them to lose as well. The actors are assholes, and ideally we'd have better people. The most interesting one.
Wow, that's a great take. Does everybody lose? Everybody lose. Well, it's such a dumb take.
On the issue that really does need to be resolved, I think, is...
Honestly, I would argue that's a cowardly take, too, man. Like, honestly, pick a side, man. If you're going to be involved... Like, if you're going to talk about, like, film and stuff like that, you should probably have an interest in this. And just be like, oh, I want everybody to lose. Like, it tells me you don't actually care about what you're talking about.
Probably the question of AI for script generation, and also particularly for image rights, because if you are just going to be able to say, we're going to take your likeness, we might pay you a one-off sum, but then we can use it forevermore, and that's basically it. I don't think that's a tenable position going forward.
Yep. It's the crew and, the lighting guys, the electricians, all the guys, who work behind the scenes that I feel bad for, because they are the people who...
Oh, I see what they're doing. They're reframing this so that, like, the people, like, the restaurant, the people who run the restaurants, the electricians and stuff like that, they're going to be victimized by the actors' strike. So they're being victimized by the actors. Is that going to be their point? Well, let's see.
Just do the job day to day and probably work their arses off and don't get paid all that well. And they now are losing out as well because the actors have decided to strike and productions are shut.
Yep, they're losing it because the actors have decided to strike. We're going to ignore why they started to strike. It just, all these people are going to be hurting because the actors decide to strike. Great. That's a great pro corporate stance there. Critical Drinker. Good thinking.
Shut down. And I imagine they don't get any like safety net for that, will they? That's when people start invoking the force majeure contracts or the clauses in their contracts where it's just like, well, we're out. What can we do? It's outside of our control.
Wasn't there a statement from some studios or whatever about how they're going to wait them out at this point? They're just
that was for the writers, yeah. I saw that. Yeah. So basically, we will run it until they, eventually they're going to start needing to pay rent, or their contracts will go up, or their utility bills will come in and they won't be able to pay them, and at that point they'll come back to the table, which is tenable up until I think the actors go on strike. That might have changed things a little bit.
Well, I think that this is a purge. This is a purge of the less experienced writers who may have gotten into their positions. Not based on merit. I'm just going to say, but yeah.
My God, do you think Hollywood's that aware? Like, do you think they actually have that ability to self-reflect? And they're like, yeah, these people are ruining our business. We need to get rid of them.
Wow. Well, I mean, this isn't even particularly well veiled. Yeah, they're talking about well, we'll see. We'll see how much the mask comes off here.
This is how we do it.
I think part of the way you do it is you get rid of the activists by making it. Look, a lot of those people are going to be going to culinary school pretty soon to learn a useful trade. I think it's a way to just
the fuck, man, the fuck. So like The writers who are newer, who are just getting into the business, yeah, fuck them. They need to learn how to cook. Fuck them.
Get rid of people who are underperforming and not, look, it's not going to affect the writers that have been around a long time, working writers who have, plenty of films under their belt, who have reputations. Like, those people are.
Yeah, we're just going to be getting rid of the new writers because fuck them. Fuck new writers. You came to Hollywood and you attained your dream to be a writer and you're getting your scripts out there. Yeah, just fuck you. What a great take, Chris Gore. What a great take.
Set. So this is a purge, and it's an opportunity also to kill a lot of series that are not performing as well.
Well, an opportunity. I will say this, and this is 100% on Chris Gore's part, a pro-corporate talking point, because the studios will use this opportunity to purge a lot of movie projects that might have gone in production, to purge a lot of TV shows. They will use this opportunity, and Chris Gore is just running cover for that right now. He's come up with excuses as to why that's a good idea, despite the fact that people are going to lose jobs over that. It's something shitty the studio's going to do. They're going to do it to save money. They'll use the strike as an excuse to do this. And Chris Gore's running cover for them.
Hollywood's looking on this as an opportunity. They're not concerned.
But they will be now with their actors out.
Right. The actors is different. And I agree. That is not going to last as long.
Yeah.
And part of it is part of it is like to show that they're in solidarity with the writers. That's why the actors are doing it. It's like, yeah, we're with you. But
well, that's what I was going to ask. Yeah, if they're in solidarity with the writers, like, is that going to force the writers' issue as well and get them what they want? Or, well, is it possible for them to reach a deal with the actors but not the writers?
Well, if the problem, from what I understand, I have several friends that are in the Writers Guild, and they tell me that what it is it's a lot of these new writers that come in. They're not particularly experienced, and they're making demands that are stupid. And these are the types of people.
So the new writers are making demands that are stupid, and he's trying to say that's why they're on strike, which is insane, because the people with the least experience. Okay, so, like, I don't know how much union experience, like, Chris Gore's been around for a while, so surely he has some union experience. Unions in general are based on fucking seniority. The new writers in the Guild are not going to have as much sway as the people who've been there for decades. They just aren't. It's going to be a seniority-based system, almost undoubtedly. So arguing that, the new writers are coming in, they're forcing issues that the guys who've been around for a while, they don't want to do, it's so fucking stupid, dude.
That I think maybe we've all had interactions with morons on social media. This is the mindset. This is the mindset of a lot of these the newer folks that are coming into the industry without a lot of experience or even levels of professionalism, right? So this is what I'm hearing from a buddy of mine he's produced. He's just like, I'm just going to go off and make an indie film. I don't care. Indie film is the future. I mean, effectively,
indie film is the future. Indie film, like, what do you think? All movies are going to be indie films? I mean, I guess it's potentially possible, but like indie films in Hollywood have coexisted for as long as the system's been around. So, yeah.
We may segue and talk about this. Sound of Freedom is
oh my God! Let's suck off Sound of Freedom, guys.
Effectively released as an indie film. So,
Sound of Freedom was produced by Fox. It became Disney got a hold of it when they did the Fox acquisition. They weren't really interested in it. To my understanding, it didn't screen particularly well. So they let the rights expire to it, and then effectively it was able to be released as an indie film because of that. But it was not produced as an indie film.
I cheer for any indie film that will take, and I'm talking about independent, not Indiana Jones. Any indie film that will siphon money away from Hollywood is a good thing.
This is one thing I was going to touch on actually just before we moved on, is like the fact that Indy 5 like collapsed at the box office and just essentially left a void before Mission Impossible came along.
We've brought this up before. There's lots of issues with the Indy 5 box office. Obviously, I'm sure like they wanted it to do better, as with every single other movie ever. They wanted to do better. Always. But, is it a bomb? I like, here, even if it doesn't make all its money back in the box office, an Indiana Jones movie will make its money back. Like, there's going to be, I'm certain there'll be physical copies, although those are becoming less common, which is sad. There'll still be digital releases. There will be box sets. An Indiana Jones movie, it's going to make its money back. It'll be fine.
It allowed other movies to kind of swoop in and take some of that box office revenue, because you had things.
We're not going to see an impact of it on it immediately. Like you're talking about, like, the strike's been going on for like 3 days, and what Sound of Freedom's going to take and dominate the box office because what?
Things like Insidious, which dominated that second weekend, a franchise which, you know, it's fun and all, but it's never been a big hitter at the box office.
Well, I've never been a big hitter at box office. Insidious franchise does extremely well for a horror movie. And horror franchises typically, like, you aren't going to get, like, horror movies that do, like, 300 million typically. That'd be an outrageously successful horror movie. I think Insidious is probably around, Insidious 5 is somewhere around 100 million worldwide, which for a horror franchise is pretty solid.
And suddenly it's like massively overperforming just because I don't think because Insidious The Red Door was a particularly amazing film or anything. It's just people wanted to see something. You know, it's the summer movie season. Yeah. They weren't interested in indie, you know,
They wanted to see something? What? Like, this summer, we've been packed with movies. What are you talking about? There's plenty of movies to watch. You could make an argument there haven't been that many horror movies. But, like, people want to see something, so they rush to Insidious? What?
Impossible wasn't out yet. Oppenheimer's not out yet. And they just went to go see that because it was there. I mean, I'm happy.
I mean, I've seen Insidious 5. It's not particularly great. Indy 5 is actually quite a bit better, in my opinion.
That it's done well. You know, it's a smaller film and it's getting a bit more attention.
Smaller film. Yeah, no, it's part 5 in a horror franchise, so it's probably not as small as the early chapters. But yeah, horror movies in particular will be smaller than, like, something like Indiana Jones.
So that's all good. And yeah, Sound of Freedom, I don't know if that's tapped into that same thing of just people were at a loose end. They wanted to watch something, but it's also kind of a bigger issue, I guess. Like,
yeah, let's talk about Sound of Freedom, a movie that has nothing to do with the writer's strike in our writer's strike or actor's strike video.
Socially and politically, that movie like touches on a lot of big things that I guess have been brought to the public consciousness more in recent years. And it's been very interesting, the reaction in the media to that film. Like, they are doing everything they can to stamp that one out.
Wow. Yeah, so Sound of Freedom, it's got some sus stuff going on. The Sound of Freedom, like, we're joking about it on Discord. It's, like, I wanted to call it like an onion, but, like, there's so many layers that an onion doesn't do it justice.
And it's weird, because it's just having the exact opposite effect.
Yeah, well, I'll just a quick.
And I also think it's interesting how Sound of Freedom, like, yeah, there's discourse online all over the place about Sound of Freedom. In real life, like, nobody knows about that fucking movie. It's like, it doesn't fucking exist in real life. You know, I know plenty of people who've seen Indiana Jones 5. I don't know a fucking person in real life who's seen Sound of Freedom at all.
Capsule review of Insidious, The Red Door.
Oh yeah, and it's absolutely a QAnon movie. Like, no question.
It's terrible. It's I thought it was like a CW tried to make a horror film. I think the Insidious series for me is kind of weak, and I saw it with an audience, and there was a row of young girls, teenage girls, that were talking through the entire film. It actually made the movie better for me, but still fell short. So yeah, so I can't believe that a movie as bad as Insidious, you know, won at the box office. Like, that was shocking.
A movie as bad as Insidious won, like, everybody expected to win at the box office. Like, all the projections showed that would do well. It's it's the 5th entry in a horror franchise. It's got name recognition. It's got returning cast members that we haven't seen since the 2nd movie. Yeah, it was expected to do pretty well. It wasn't like the biggest movie ever, but it did fine, just as projected. Like, Chris Gore is 100% talking out of his ass when he's saying, oh, nobody thought it would do well. In fact, here, just to correct the record on him real fast, just so I have this when I cut this together later. Because, yeah, it was 100% projected to do pretty much what it did. So going into the weekend of Insidious, weekend projections, Insidious lands in first with projected 32 million. Weekend predictions, Insidious head towards surprise weekend win. Yeah, it like they knew it would do pretty well. So like, everybody was shocked that it did well. No, people saw it coming, man. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know.
Shocking.
Yeah.
I did not predict that.
It's when people are just like, they're in the mood to go to the movies, and it's like, well, we'll just see whatever's on, and you've got your choices of like, do you want to see Dial of Destiny? Yeah. I'm all right. What else is on? Insidious. Oh, okay, we'll watch a horror film in the middle.
I like how they're talking like Insidious actually outperformed Indiana Jones 2, because it didn't remotely. Okay, let's pull this up. So right now, Insidious has done 122 million worldwide. Okay, for a horror franchise, pretty fucking good. Indiana Jones is looking at 300 million worldwide. So no, it's not comparable, bro. Indiana Jones has done way more business than fucking Insidious. Quit acting like it.
For the summer, sure, okay, why not? Fair enough. Yeah, like that's. I guess it's interesting. You get these little quirks in the box office when there's some movie that just collapses. Like, well, something has to fill the void, I suppose, and that's it. But yeah, Sound of Freedom, a much better movie.
So is this just a video excuse to wank off over Sound of Freedom again?
Not exactly like, crowd-pleasing fare or anything, but again, it's attracted a lot of attention and it's way overperformed. And it's a funny one because Disney actually sat on it for about 5 years, didn't they? Like, it was made by Fox back in the day, and then Disney bought...
Wait, you just told me it was an indie movie. Now you just said it was made by Fox. Pick a lane, guys. Oh my god.
...them over. They refused to release it, but they just, they didn't delete it either. They just kind of sat on it and eventually sold it off to this little studio who released it themselves.
I like that. They type out, oh, it's an independent movie, and then they just went back and went, oh yeah, it was made by Fox.
Books, records, films, these things matter. Call me shallow. It's the fucking truth.